For those of you that do not remember, that tone is Sports Talk time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sports Talk as we kick off our third season here on Podbean. We want to thank you all for joining us. This is live right now on Podbean. You can join us. You could also join us on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you for joining us. I'm Corey. My name is Ed. My partner will be joining me momentarily. My partner Jesus will be joining us momentarily, but it's good to be back. For those of you that were wondering, the show went on hiatus for the summer break. We know that we're still in August and summer's still going on for some areas. We know some kids are going back to school. I know how that felt back in the day, but it's a good thing that I don't got to worry about that anymore. So, again, we want to thank you for joining us. This is a special season 3 premiere. Again, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, anywhere else, iHeart. And let's talk about what's been going on. So I'd like to kick off this show with a segment called What Has Been Going On Since We Last Met. We're going to go back to the month of June. The Boston Celtics won their 18th NBA championship after taking out the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games. So we knew that was going to be a slow getter, but Boston is now the only team in the NBA with 18 titles. Of course, behind is the Los Angeles Lakers with 17. So that was going on in the month of June. Also in the month of June, what happened? LeBron James made his decision. That's right. LeBron James has signed a 2-year extension to remain with the Los Angeles Lakers. And on top of that, his son, Bronny James, is also a Laker. So the Lakers will have a father-son duel to kick off purple and gold season coming up in a few months. And speaking up in a few months, we know the Olympics had just ended. Congratulations to the United States winning the basically dominating with the medal count. They tied China with 41 gold medals. But congratulations to every athlete who won a medal for the United States. Congratulations to the women's basketball team for winning the gold again. Congratulations to the men's basketball team for winning a gold. So now the Paris Games is over, and now we get set for the 2028 Olympics coming up here in Los Angeles in 2028. Is now the countdown and the preparations begin. Now we go on to baseball. And some sad news coming out of the Angels camp. Mike Trout is going to miss the rest of the season with another injury. The same injury that benched him last year is going to end his season this year. Mike Trout's been in rehab for the past few months. He was playing in rehab. He was pulled from one of the games for a pulled muscle, but it turned out that it was the same injury that did him in last year. Trout is in the 6th year of a 12-year deal he signed with the Angels. We'll talk about more of that later, but again, the Angels are out without Mike Trout again for the 2nd year in a row. The Angels currently are near last place, and they're just trying to strive on, but I am surprised that they were able to win some games, so let's do that as well. The NFL has started training camp. A couple weeks ago, training camp season opened, and the preseason has started. We'll talk about that as well. The Clippers are opening a new arena this season across the street from SoFi Stadium, the highly improved billion-dollar project. The so-called next great arena, better than crypto in people's minds, is about to open up. I cannot wait till I get my first trip there. I'll tell you, that stadium is very, very awesome. Costs a lot of money. I think they had like a Bruno Mars concert there recently. So, I mean, it's going to be a very kick-ass season to the Clippers season. They call it the Intuit Dome, and that's in Inglewood, California, next to SoFi Stadium. The NFL season kicks off in September. We're going to jump into that in a moment. Meanwhile, the Dodgers are still fighting for the NL West. It's a tight race. And we'll talk about that momentarily. And that is the segment we like to call what's been going on since we last met. I know it's been a couple months. We're near the end of the summer season, but now the good sports are coming back. We got the NFL back. Basketball's coming up momentarily. Baseball is near the end, and then we got hockey coming up. NASCAR is started their race for the chase today, but their race was postponed after 52 laps in Michigan. They will resume their race tomorrow in Michigan. You can catch that race on the USA Network or Peacock if you have that. Still waiting on my partner to show up to me, so we'll go ahead and wait for that as well. But I want to get a round of applause for everyone for coming back for this Season 3 edition of Sports Talk. So let's start off with the most obvious, the NFL season. The preseason kicked off last week and is entering its second week with a lot of the games are in the books. So we're going to start off with the Los Angeles Rams. They are 2-0 in the preseason. That's right, 2-0. After winning their first two games, week one last week, they beat the Cowboys with just a few seconds left, 13-12 at SoFi. And yesterday, they took out the Chargers 13-9 in their second preseason game at SoFi Stadium. Some news out of the Rams camp. Right now, Matthew Stafford suffered a knee injury or leg injury this past week. Coach Sean McVay stated that there is nothing to be worried about because the injury does not seem serious. But in light of yesterday's game, here's some enthusiasm and energy speech from that Rams win against the Chargers. Let's take a listen.
Is this just about us? It's all about us. Man, you guys showed energy, you showed effort, you showed enthusiasm, you showed the vibe. We were smart in situations, and we took the step forward from the first game. And that's all we want to do, both as players and as coaches. From my first time in this opportunity, I can't tell you how thankful I am for everyone, but more specifically, the position coaches that are just as equal opportunity, equal value that can be in this position. Thank you for fighting the love and working with me. The captains every day, thank you for everything. Thank you for everything. So I'm telling you, if we go out there with that same fight, that same connective tissue, that same 1-2 for each other, man, we can do something special this year. We can do something really special. Because it's not about me right now, it's about us. You know, and that's what I want to say. We'll talk about game ball and all that other stuff later. Let's celebrate this moment together. You know what I'm saying?
That was from the Los Angeles Rams YouTube channel, so special thanks to them for providing that sneak peek in the locker room after the win yesterday against the Chargers. And that was actually assistant coach Aubrey Pleasant. McVay did not coach that game. He gave the role to him to see what he would do. I mean, think about it. The head coach saying, hey, we want you to coach and see how you do in a situation like this. I mean, it's pretty awesome, you know, getting a shot like that. And plus, this is an actual game. I know it's a preseason game, but this is still an actual game. And for him to go out there and win it, I know it's a preseason game, it doesn't count. It was basically a good feeling for him. Of course, it boosted the team morality. You can tell how everybody was was so proud for him to win that game. But the Rams are 2-0 in the preseason. And, their defense, even though they're playing with bench players, it's actually awesome. They're they're giving less points. In the first game, they allowed just field goals, no touchdowns. And same here, it looks like they gave a fight for their money. So right now, the Rams are 2-0 in the preseason, as I said. They're going to be playing their last preseason game on the road, and then they will get ready for the regular season coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about the Chargers as well, what this means for Jim Harbaugh and his squad. So far, there's injuries there as well. And there's injuries everywhere, not just here. We know that the Minnesota Vikings just went through something like that recently. But it's good to know that football is back, and I'm sure everyone in the nation's glad. And a lot of things happen on training camp, as we kick off this season 3 edition of Sports Talk. And then Stetson Bennett, I got to talk about this guy. Here's a quarterback who was with the team, took a year off because he was dealing with a mental illness situation or a mental situation, and then he comes back and it looks like he didn't lose a beat. We know the first game was very terrible. He didn't play well, but for him to hang in there and then throw a winning touchdown, that's got to be awesome, The Rams will wrap up the season, the preseason, next Saturday against the Texans. That's in Houston. So remember, there's only 3 preseason games because of the extra week they added, week 18. And then they'll kick off the season on September 8th in Detroit, a rematch of the NFC wild card, which was a very, very back and forth matchup. Lions beat the Rams 24-23. Their home opener will be on September 15th against the I'm sorry, I take that back. Their home opener actually is going to be on September 22nd against the 49ers at SoFi. So the Rams are going to open up with 2 games on the road, NFC matchups. Again, they play the Lions on Sunday night to kick off the season. And then they will play the Cardinals week 2, September 15th in Arizona, and then they'll come back here on September 22nd to play the San Francisco 49ers, and I believe tickets are still available for that matchup. So for the Rams, big year for them. Again, Stafford is going into his 5th year here with the Rams, 38 years old, hasn't talked much about retirement. He is still going strong and a contract restructuring. And again, there's a lot of questions going on with the Rams. Of course, as many of you know, Aaron Donald announced his retirement in the offseason. He was there at the facility this week, though. He was there with the players, but it was unknown if he was trying to come back or not. But if this team makes a season run playoff, I guarantee he may come back because that's what Eric Weddle did, and Aaron Donald could do that. And then, of course, we want to know how the offense is going to be with the, I believe, should have been the Rookie of the Year, Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp suffered some injuries in the last 2 years, or last 2-3 years. We remember the injuries in 2022. He had an up and down 2023, and now he is basically healthy, and he looks like he's good to go. He may have a shot at another MVP season, which I believe he deserves an MVP season based on the numbers he's put up. But of course, again, the defense will be the big question. can this defense go without Aaron Donald? They did some signings over the offseason. We know the signings they did. Um, they have a new defensive coordinator. And based on that defense I've seen the first 2 weeks, I think this team can make a run at a championship. I think they can run a championship, and they know how to win and take care of business. So we know we got some games going on tonight. Right now, the 49ers and Saints are going at it, and I believe that's a 13-10 game going into the fourth quarter. I want to say no, that's actually a 16-10 game in the fourth quarter. So it was pretty cool. Pretty cool to have football back. And I mentioned that Sean McVay was calling plays from the sidelines. I mean, I was watching Good Morning Football a couple of days ago, and I was very interested at the reactions that everyone was saying about, McVay calling plays, because of course he was a coordinator with the Washington Commanders prior to coming to Los Angeles in 2017. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think about the Good Morning Football crew talking about this. Let's peek in.
That's your audition tape. So if Amazon or Fox or CBS or ESPN or here at the NFL Network, we're looking for the next great broadcaster of a game, like that's your audition tape. No more. We don't need to bring them in. Don't need to put them in a shirt and tie. Like that's what it is. What I love most about it was the clip starts just like, oh, Coach McCarthy's going empty here. Like, okay, a 4th and 3. Like I love that stuff. The excitement. And McVay's the man.
Well, I like it that even though maybe his player didn't win, he liked it that it was good competition out there. Like that's all those guys want is competition. Can we just ask DeMario, you played against Coach McVay. What's he like on the sideline? Is he a conversation guy? You ever have any run-ins with him?
Oh man, he'd be real dialed into his offense. I mean, I was impressed by what I just saw right there, man. Can we get that type of energy full time? Not just McVay, but coaches analyzing the game. Because I'm like, that coaching material happening on the sideline. It is. It's a different perspective too. That was very interesting. I was very intrigued. And so he's very different than that on Sunday.
Oh yes.
I mean, I'm talking big trash to him on the sideline. He went.
So that's very interesting for them to have a reaction like that. So I mean, of course, when he won the Super Bowl, they were giving him offers to join Amazon on Thursday nights. I believe NBC wanted him as well, and I want to say Fox. That was before the Tom Brady retirement stuff happened. So I'm a little interested to see how everyone feels about that. Should McVay, if he ever decides to step down as a coach, should he pursue the broadcasting career, or should he pursue maybe a coordinator position? Because I mean, this guy was the offensive coordinator with the Washington Redskins. I mean, he worked with quarterbacks such as Kirk Cousins. That's a familiar name, and he was at quarterback Colt McCoy. He was there too. So he knows how to run this system of an offense. I mean, we saw it the last couple years with Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. Now he has it with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Nakua, Williams and Freeman. So it's a very, very interesting scenario here. You wonder what he thinks about, hearing all this, or, I mean, just whatever you think can go. But again, we're almost there from the season, and I just want to know everyone's take. Will the Rams make a Super Bowl run? Does this team have enough talent? Can Matthew Stafford stay healthy? That's going to be the important part. We know he suffered a injury, and I believe my partner has joined us in here. Just waiting for him to get his mic plugged in. Let's give him a round of applause as we kick off our season 3.
Yo, what's up, partner? Glad to be back for another season.
Yes, I was
It's been a
telling the
while,
viewers.
man.
Yes,
Glad to be back.
I know you were listening earlier, so we just went over we just discussed what happened over the summer. I wanna ask you though. I wanna ask your take on something serious. So, Mike Trout. Um, I mentioned this about 10 minutes ago. So he's out for the season with another injury. Um, where do the Angels go from here as far as the contract? I mean, he's got 6 years left. I believe he signed a 12-year deal. I mean, where do you go with this guy?
I think you move on at this point in the season. You know, the 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 Angels are second to last in their division and more than 10 games behind the wild card. But it was tough news. You know, he came back a game in which they thought he was healthy, but unfortunately he retore that meniscus. But at this point, they're moving on. They're bringing a lot of young players from AAA, AA into the MLB roster, in which I see them doing that for the rest of the season. And hopefully, Mike Trout could be healthy and ready for next year's season.
Yeah,
What about?
I want to talk about what he had said about this. So this was from 2 weeks ago. He when this was when the announcement was made. He says, quote, "This is equally as heartbreaking and frustrating for me as it is for you. The fans, I understand that I may have disappointed many, but believe me, I will do everything I can to come back stronger." So there's a promise that he'll come back next season. But if you're management, what do you do as far as keeping tabs on him? I mean, it's possible to maybe work a trade or what? I mean, what can they do at this point? I mean, this is now 2 years in a row that he's going to be out for the season. He's going to miss a full, like, almost a whole season.
Yeah, you're right, and especially at his age, it's hard to tell if he's gonna come back as healthy as he was before in the 2019 to 2021 season. But as you could tell, like each year, it seems like he seems to play less and less games. Besides that 2022 season, where I think that was his last healthiest season. But the Angels, I think they're gonna keep him. He's loyal. He even said he's gonna stay with the Angels. We have him signed for still another more than 4 years, 5 years. So that's pretty much his pretty much when he hits his 40s. But the Angels organization, I think they're gonna keep him, knowing their owners about his history. But yeah, that's my take on that.
What you
What about
mentioned
you?
about
What you think?
the his injury history. So let's go back a couple of years. So he's missed a lot of games in the past 4 years. So we go back to 2021, the year after COVID. He missed a season with a calf strain. Only played 36 games. You go back and you mentioned 2022. That was like the most he's played in a long time. He was sidelined with a back inflammation, and he missed 119 games for that. And then you go back to last season, he only played almost half the season. He missed the rest with a broken hamate, I believe that's what it's pronounced. And then this season, a torn meniscus, which is near the ACL. He had an injury like that last year, and he only played 29 games. So he played only, like, if you do the math, partner, it looks like this season he only played maybe 15%, maybe just 20% of the season. A guy that's making a lot of money and has had a lot of success when it comes to stats and all-star votings. Does this show that, it may be the beginning of the end of his dominance?
As much as it hurts to say it, I believe so. But damn, it was just tough to. It's rare to see that happen nowadays. Players come back in baseball. They repair their torn meniscus, and a week later, like when they come back a week later, it's retorn. So that's a difficult case, especially when your knees when you get older, they start to wear off like every other body part. And I forgot to mention Trout. We just signed him in 2019 for 12 years and 426 million. So he's pretty much with us until 2031. Damn. But I see him keeping him, but hopefully he stays healthy. That's the goal. Comes back healthy.
Well, when this news broke out, I believe Matt Snyder of CBS Sports, he actually weighed in and how he felt about this injury. So let's take a peek at this what he had said on CBS Sports.
It's a little bit depressing. As a big fan of baseball and a big fan of Trout, he's so fun to watch, and he's one of the, when you look at just his prime, he's had one of the best primes in the history of Major League Baseball. So it kind of has been a shame these last few years to not see him continue to compile those stats like the hits, the runs, the RBIs, getting that WAR up there. Just, it would have been so cool to see if he could stay fully healthy, what he could have done in terms of the historical presence that he would have across the leaderboards as a center fielder, or even regardless of position.
Well, there's your small take on it. I mean, it's true. I mean, with Shohei Ohtani and the other LA team, I mean, it would have been fun to see because these guys played together for 5 years. So it would have been fun to see which guy was able to lead his team, A, and then B, who would round up with the most stats. You know, we see Ohtani right now. He's dominating. He's dominating, but you wonder what would have happened if Mike Trout would have stayed healthy. It's just one of those scenarios that we just don't know, or maybe we'll never know. I mean, agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. And this is super similar to the Clippers, you know, with the Paul George, Kawhi situation with the injuries. But yeah, I agree with you on that take.
It's going to be tough to see what happens from here on out. Again, you know, everybody knows the situation. Again, we talked about this on our, you know, what's been going on segment at the top of the show. It's going to be hard to what's going to happen because, again, we just don't know what would have happened this year. This is a what if. This is a scenario that maybe we'll never know. It's sad because as a Mike Trout fan as well, I mean, I'm used to seeing him hit home runs. It's very, very sad, you know. So, I mean, again, we'll just have to wait and see. And again, our best wishes to him. I would love to see him come back, and you know, maybe he'll be able to, you know, prove his doubters wrong. But we'll just have to wait and see, partner. But let's talk about another subject here. So the NBA season is a few months away, and the NBA has announced their schedule, their regular season schedule. So we're gonna give you one here. So opening night, which is Tuesday, October 22nd, TNT is going to have a doubleheader. So the first game will be the New York Knicks against the defending champion Boston Celtics. The night they will unveil their 18th NBA championship. Boo, by the way. Because I don't like the Celtics and because they're from Boston, you know. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of crud from the Boston fans when that happens. I'm sure I'm going to be hearing my phone go off and people are going to be leaving voicemails saying, but I mean, hey, First Amendment rights, I guess. And then the nightcap will be the Dallas Mavericks against LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. Going to the Lakers. So LeBron signs his extensions, 2 more years. They draft his son. They still haven't made any other key free agency moves. I mean, what does this team look like right now?
The Lakers you mentioned. I think the Lakers at this point, the Lakers, they haven't got nobody. They haven't done no roster moves from what I know. I'm not sure from your case, since you're a Laker fan, what you think personally, because as my take as an NBA fan, I think LeBron just won a gold medal, which was crazy and exciting to watch. now his focus is on the Lakers. They got Bronny, right? So I think Bronny's gonna have limited minutes his first year with the Lakers, unless LeBron says, "This is my last year. Let me just play with my son." I think this year they're not really focused in going playoffs, championship mode. That's my opinion.
Well, let's talk about who the Lakers are going to play. So we know they're going to play the Dallas Mavericks, and then the Nuggets are going to guess who the Nuggets play their first game.
Clippers?
Their first game will be against a team that swept them in the or beat them in the first round against the Lakers.
Oh, okay.
So October 24th, we're going to have a Lakers Nuggets rematch of the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. So that one is going to be an interesting matchup, because also another big game on the 24th, TNT. It's going to be the Suns and the Golden State Warriors that same night. Steph Curry against Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. I mean, with the Warriors in a different state, now that they lost their big three, I believe it's so far it's just Steph Curry there. I mean, how is this Golden State Warrior team going to look going into this season?
They're gonna look pretty decent. They have Steph Curry's gonna Steph Curry. They still have Draymond Green, who's a veteran presence on the floor, and they have their young veteran squad like Jonathan Kuminga, who has a great future. Well, there was a rumor about, I'm not sure if you've seen it. The Warriors declined the trade for Paul George, in which the Clippers requested a trade to trade Paul George to Golden State Warriors for 3 players and a draft pick. They denied that. But Golden State is going to be average, I see. But you never know with Stephen Curry. He could light it up and be a MVP type of year. Because his years are coming down to the wire as well.
You wonder for these players, LeBron, Steph Curry, Durant, Davis. I mean, these guys just came back from playing in the Olympics, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have a little bit of an advantage because they have a little bit of basketball under their belt. But is it a concern that these guys might face potential early season injuries because of those extra time they were, playing in Paris?
Not at all. I think it's going to be, they've been playing basketball all their lives, and from the Olympics being over to the season starting, they have a 2-month period in which they could recover all they want. So I think, nope, for the answer.
But let's talk about the schedule for the first week. These are some interesting matchups. So October 25th, it will be the Mavericks taking on the Spurs, the San Antonio Spurs. And then on Friday, October 27th, one of the matchups from last year's playoffs, the Miami Heat, again, taking on the champion Boston Celtics. So that's going to be a interesting matchup there. I mean, that's always been a rival for many years. And then the same night, guess what? The Warriors will take on the Kings in Sacramento. I mean, I'm looking at these opening week games, and it looks like the NBA is going to be they're going to have their hypest matchups in the first week. I just can't believe it.
Yup, the 2024-2025 seasons starting out hot with good competitive games in the first week. So that's pretty exciting to wait for.
Yeah, and then let's talk about Christmas Day, partners. So Christmas Day, those are the big matchups too. So Christmas Day, there's going to be, there's a quadruple game all day. First one will be the Bucks taking on the Knicks. That's going to be the ESPN game at noon Eastern, so it'll be 9 a.m. here our time. It'll be the Bucks and Knicks kicking off Christmas Day play. And then after that, it'll be the Warriors and Nuggets. That's going to be on ABC at 2:30 Eastern, so it'll be after the first game. Again, it'll be the Warriors.
Wait, partner, which schedule are you looking at? It's going to be you said the Warriors and who? So the NBA Christmas schedule, it's the Spurs versus the Knicks. the Timberwolves versus the Dallas Mavericks, the 76ers versus Boston, the famous Los Angeles Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors, and the Nuggets versus the Suns, which is caps off the night in basketball for NBA Christmas. Because I believe this year's Christmas it's okay, you know. What you think?
Yeah, I believe our stat guy gave me the wrong games. I think I'm gonna have to fire him for that. But let's stay on topic with basketball. So let's talk about TNT. So over the summer or before the finals ended, the NBA made an agreement on a new TV contract. So we all remember the NBA on NBC. You remember those days with Marv Albert, the Czar. You remember that, don't you, partner?
Yes, sir. The good old days.
And if you don't remember, let's play a little memory lane right here. For Chicago Bulls fans, this title is called Michael Jordan crushing everybody's dreams in the 90s because he was so dominant during the 90s. It's gonna be sad though. I mean, TNT is gonna be airing the NBA for the final time this season, and then after that it'll go to NBC. Still no word on what's gonna happen with ESPN and ABC. It sounds like that's gonna remain the same, but also
Sorry to cut you off, partner. Who are the announcers for NBC?
it hasn't been determined yet because they're still working on contract negotiations. Charles Barkley, after the NBA Finals, said he was going to retire. He was going to do this one more year and that's it because he didn't want to go anywhere else. Ernie Johnson, who's a host of the pregame show on TNT, the best pregame show ever, and the postgame show as well. He's staying at TNT Sports. He's going to probably do some other jobs. As far as Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, it's undetermined on what they're gonna do. The last thing I heard from my sources, and I can't confirm this because it's just a rumor, that Shaq might go to NBC with Kenny Smith, but again, that's just a rumor. We don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see how that goes. But Charles Barkley said he's retiring. That after this season, he's done.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that I could picture two of the TNT guys going to NBC, and like you mentioned, Barkley retiring, and the other one moving on was sticking with TNT.
Yeah, you look at the NBA, partner, in the last 30, 50 years, the NBA deals have just like the value of it has grown because the game has just gotten so exciting. So let me give you a breakdown of this. So in 1979, the NBA used to be broadcast on USA Network, and they bought that TV deal for $1.5 million. And then you look at 1984. That was when the NBA the contract was purchased by Turner, TBS. They purchased that at $20 million. And then you go to 2007 where, the ABC, ESPN TV deals, that cost about $7.4 billion. And then now you look at, when they renewed that contract in 2014, that nearly doubled, quadrupled to $24 billion. So it just shows that the NBA has grown a lot from what it was back then. I know the NBA took hits because of political stance, especially during the 2020 season with the protests and everything. A lot of people got offended. They boycotted the NBA. They stopped watching. But it looks like the money wise, they've recovered from all that. And you look at when I look at these TV deals, it's like, man, like, where do I sign up?
No, yeah, I agree with the of everything, especially that basketball has grown, especially international. You see all these new countries who are making it into the Olympics, who are competing for a spot in the Olympics that you never even thought would even make it. But yeah, it's been internationally, it's been growing a lot. It's always been growing here in the States. So basketball, it's still gonna have a bright future coming, and that is gonna probably hit trillions one day. You never know.
Well, this deal partner is going to be for 11 years. It's with Disney, which owns ESPN and ABC, so that chances are they're going to stay the same. NBC Universal, which owns NBC, and Amazon Prime. As you know, Thursday Night Football went to Amazon Prime just 2 years ago, and now you look at Amazon.com. Their stock exchange, they just grown with the addition of these two franchises or these two big leagues. I mean, what's next? I mean, do you see? I see maybe MLB and the NHL maybe making a run towards Amazon Prime. You never know.
Yeah, you never know with that because Apple TV currently has just MLB, Peacock at times, but not really. But yeah, I could see that from every sport, even going to their own little involving pretty much.
You see the NFL, what they did. They terminated with DirecTV. The Sunday Ticket's on YouTube TV now. They got Thursday Night Football on Prime, Amazon Prime. Thursday Night Football is on NBC, Peacock. Do you see these other leagues copying the NFL as far as trying to get their product out there? Because again, these products took a big hit during the tension of racism and protesting and with everything else that's happened. You look at what happened 4 years ago. You look at it 4 years later. I mean, do you see this is like an attempt to recover some money that was lost?
Not all sports, just the major sports that are always how can I say it, with good ratings. Not every sport's gonna make try to do it, but you never know. NFL, Netflix. I never thought I would see that, but yeah,
And this deal is worth $76 billion for 11 years.
money. It's a lot.
And reports are the USFL, the USFL that merged with the XFL. They had announced that they are coming back next season. They had good ratings this year, so they're bringing back that league next year. How much growth do you think you'll see out of that league?
USFL or
Yeah,
UFL?
UFL.
Um, I never really watched that. There's been a couple games, but we'll see what they'll bring to the table. I thought they merged with XFL or
Yeah, that's the Rock. That's owned by the Rock, but they did well, and they said that the Rock announced that they're bringing back the league next season.
so they're gonna merge with XFL or they're gonna have their own league.
Um, it's still in the works.
Oh, okay, I see it here. Yeah, still in the works, but it seems like a lot of players from the XFL, UFL are signing with NFL teams right now.
Yeah. So speaking of the NFL, we are just, as we mentioned at the beginning of the program, we're just about a few weeks away from kickoff. Rams will take on the Lions on Sunday night in September.
And yep,
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
earlier when I joined, I heard you were talking about McVay coaching from the sidelines, or
Yeah, what happened was he gave one of his assistants a chance to be the head coach yesterday against the Chargers.
oh
And
yeah, yeah, that was
and
amazing. The assistant, his name is Aubrey Pleasant.
yeah,
So it seems like you just got to give a lot of credit to the Rams head coach Sean McVay because he empowers his coaching staff somehow. So he gave Aubrey Pleasant head coaching duties for this week, even if it's a preseason, which doesn't really come around in the NFL. Not a lot of coaches would do that, but it seemed to work, and I think that's gonna bring another coach to leave us in a couple of years, or it could be the opposite, like you mentioned earlier. McVay could switch coaching spots, or you know. So I love what we do. I love what McVay does with his coaching staff. It's just amazing. It seems to work out every time, and especially with our draft picks. I love it. I love it, man. Love to be a Rams fan as we speak.
You talk about McVay with these assistants. I mean, let's talk about Bill Parcells. So Bill Parcells had a chain of these coaches that are, they used to be assistants, and they became head coaches. I mean, you look at I got the list right here. I mean, Bill Parcells, he pupiled Bill Belichick, as we know, he became the greatest. Tom Coughlin, that's another coach. He coached the Jacksonville Jaguars. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. Sean Payton was on his staff in Dallas. He won a Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints. You look at Romeo Crennel. He was one of his assistants. He was on the Belichick Super Bowl team. You look at these former coaches. Also, coaches like Al Groh. He coached the Jets for a year, and then he went to University of Virginia. So, these guys had successful years coaching. Can we see Sean McVay as like the next, Bill Belichick with all these assistants that are coaching now?
I could see it that way, but at the same time, I could see it as Sean McVay retiring at a young age and like going into the sports desk. But as of now, I think it's amazing what he's doing, and yeah, I agree. He's going into that. He's going that way. He's like a Belichick, making all his coaching staff just amazing on the work they do each and every year. So I'm pretty hyped about this.
So you look at the the assistants that McVay had. Of course, excuse me. Of course, Zach Taylor, coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, went to the Super Bowl, played him that Super Bowl 56, I think, or 58. You look at Coach Raheem Morris. He won a Super Bowl with Sean McVay. He's now the coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Brandon Staley was the coach of the Chargers. But I guess he's the only one that didn't have a successful run. You look at Kevin O'Connell, who used to be Jared Goff's quarterback coach. He's now the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. So you look at the chain of assistants that went on to be head coaches, and then you look at Bill Parcells, assistants that went on to be head coaches. I mean, is it safe enough to compare like Sean McVay to the other great coaches of the earlier days before he began his career?
I say yes. From my experience, seeing him grow since his first year with the Rams head coach and his roster he had before, yeah.
How confident that you see this Rams team going far this year? How far you think they can go?
I think this first year we're gonna have our ups and downs because we have a lot of we have a young team this year. After Aaron Donald retired, we had to bring up a couple young stars to fit in that role, and that are gonna have to take that spot. I see this year we're gonna go over 500 by 1 or 2 games, but I'll say in no more than 2 years we're gonna see ourselves back in the playoffs, going for that Super Bowl run. Once Well, I'm saying the Super Bowl's gonna be here in LA, so why not? Why not that year again? The Super Bowl in LA, go all out that year. But Stafford's years are going down, and I don't really, the only position I don't really like is our backup quarterbacks, which is we're pretty thin in that case.
I was hoping that they were able to keep Carson Wentz, but unfortunately he went off to Kansas City. So I was really hoping he would stay because he knows the system. Again, he led the Rams to that victory against the 49ers in the last week of the season, which got them to go to Detroit. I think had they lost that game, they would have played the Dallas Cowboys that round. But you look at one of the biggest positions I see right now is the quarterback position is Matthew Stafford. I mean, 38 years old, been in the league a long time. You wonder if he can take the hits because we did see him take hits, especially in the playoff game.
No, yeah, definitely. We're gonna have to protect them more, or he's gonna be more cautious in the quarterback role. And so, but for an example, if he goes down, our backup for the first 5 weeks will be Stephen Bennett, which I'm not sure if you've seen his first two preseason games. You can't say he's the best, but he tries. He's a little bit mobile. Jimmy Garoppolo has been struggling in the offseason with the squads, with the scrimmages. There's rumors and a lot of sports writers saying he's been throwing a lot of interceptions as well. I'm not sure if all that affects him with his 5 suspended games or 3 estimated. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I have a report here saying that he's undergoing a suspension because I believe of an illegal drug use. I believe it's because of his back when he was with the Raiders. So he is going to be out. So Stetson Bennett is going to be that backup quarterback, and you wonder if they plan to bring in the third quarterback, or maybe call someone up from the practice squad. But I'm looking at this lineup, and like I said, one of the key guys that are gonna make this team successful is gonna start with the quarterback position, and then the running game. I mean, you look at Kyren Williams, the season he had. You have Blake Corum, the second running back, and then you got Ronnie Rivers, who's the third running back, and you also have Boston Scott, who's fourth string. He's improved himself as well. So I mean, I'm looking at the quarterback and I'm looking at the running back, but again, I'm looking at the receivers. This is not the same receiving team for the Super Bowl. I mean, Cooper Kupp is good, but again, you wonder how he is with those injuries. And then Puka Nacua, I believe he was robbed of Rookie of the Year. I mean, would you agree that he got robbed of that?
It's a hard one. The NFL is always going to give the trophy to the NFL quarterbacks as rookies. So even though Puka did a fantastic year, he broke records that had never been broken in 4 years. But they're going to give it to the quarterback eventually.
They gave it to the quarterback from the Texans. I mean, yeah, look, he had a good year. He led the team to the playoffs, led him to a playoff win. But I just think that Puka Nacua shredded everything this year. He shredded defenders. He was always open. He was basically the Cooper Kupp Jr. of the Rams when the Cooper Kupp Sr. couldn't do well. And oh yeah, we actually have a message from Mr. Ingram, who he believes that the Texans quarterback deserved it. So I mean, yeah, I mean he did. He put up better numbers than Puka Nacua, but there's always going to be a debate on who deserves it more. I mean, it's going to be between those two. You wonder
And
now.
there's another main reason. So before the season started, the Texans were projected a 3-and-something record. So he proved everybody wrong. So you got to give him credit on that as well.
Yeah, I did see that too. They actually were not projected to win the AFC South. I think that was supposed to be Jacksonville's division.
Yeah.
Jacksonville got out to that start, and then they ended up losing 5 straight to end. And then I believe the last week of the season they beat the Colts to get in. They won the wild card berth, and then they actually won a playoff game, which no one thought.
Yeah, those last couple weeks were coming down to the wire.
And he actually beat a Super Bowl quarterback. I believe it was Joe Flacco. And that was a guy that was signed off the streets, and he basically ran away, with that starting job with the Browns. I mean, I think he should have won Comeback Player of the Year, to be honest. Because no one, everyone figured that he was washed up, because he's not with Baltimore. Everybody remembered him from Baltimore because of Ray Lewis and the defense. But, I mean, yeah, he hasn't done nothing since. But, I mean, look what he did this year. He gets called off the street midway through the season. You lose your star quarterback, and then this guy comes in and he gives hopes to the franchise. And the sad part, he's not there, though. You would think Cleveland would keep him and be like, this guy's our golden boy. And yeah, I agree with you. He didn't have any weapons in Baltimore. I mean, let's talk about that real quick. In his first 4 years, he had a running game. Ray Rice was his running back, and he was a good running back before he did the stupid thing, which we're not going to discuss. He had some okay receivers. At the time he had Derek Mason, but he was getting old. He had Todd Heap, who was Shannon Sharp's apprentice. And then you talk about the Super Bowl season. They bring in Torrey Smith from the. They bring in Torrey Smith. So I mean, he had. I'm not gonna say he had a. I'm gonna say he had an okay offense, but he had something. It's like Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez was good because he had a defense. They did ground and pound, but when they try to develop him to be one of those top passers, it just backfired. So, I mean, I can see the same with Flacco. Most people will say, and yes, Mark Sanchez, the guy that ran into his own player's butt, that Mark Sanchez. And I actually saw him earlier on Fox. The guy got long hair now. He grew his hair. So you hardly recognize him. But
the Mark Sanchez everybody thought he was gonna be wasn't.
Yeah, but I mean, as I said before, I mean, Baltimore, they won that Super Bowl because they had defense. They won it twice because of defense. I mean, Flacco didn't have much to do. All he had to do was he was like one of those time management quarterbacks. But he had like a stellar, I'm not saying he had an excellent offense. He had an okay offense. Look, the 2012 Ravens, I compare them to the 2000 Ravens because they had a running game too. Jamal Lewis was a running back. Ray Rice was a running back. So that team's in the same. They won because of defense. So, but
I always say defensive teams wins. Defensive wins championships.
Well, you go back to the year 2000. It was defense. Defense was dominating. Now you look at it 20 years later. It's like it's all about offense. I mean, you look at guys like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts. And I'm not sure. I want to read this quote here. So it says Mark Sanchez was never given a fair shake in the NFL. After the butt fumble, he was practically laughed out of the league. If they were to give him a second chance with a good offense line and at least some decent receivers, he would have been elite. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you because let's go back to history. When Sanchez had the butt fumble, he got benched, and then the next year they draft Geno Smith. And then they put Mark Sanchez in a preseason game, which is meaningless because Rex Ryan wanted to win. And then he hurts his shoulder. And, Rex Ryan gets ripped by the media because of what he did. And, that was the last time Mark Sanchez wore a Jets uniform. He was out that season. They let him go. He got picked up by the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't have much of the Eagles weren't stellar at the time. Then he got picked up by the Denver Broncos. That was after the Peyton Manning Super Bowl run. Then he goes to the Washington Redskins at the time. Yeah, you're right. I agree with what was said. If he would have had a second chance at it, he would have been better. Because Mark Sanchez played better with stellar stars. He had LaDainian Tomlinson, he had Santonio Holmes, he had Plaxico Burress. And again, And yeah, that's true. He's got more playoff wins than the Cowboys in the last 20 years. Think about it.
Damn,
Yeah, think about it. Think about it, partner.
that's a good one.
No, but think about it. Mark Sanchez is the only
That's
guy in
insane.
history. Yeah, he's the only guy in history to beat Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in the same year in the playoffs. He marches into Indy, takes out Peyton Manning, then they go to New England and beat a team that beat them by like 40 points before, and he takes out Tom Brady. I mean, think about it. These quarterbacks got wins over Manning and Brady, but you don't beat them in the same year. And Mark Sanchez is the only one that's done it. He beat him in the same year. Let's remember that, partner. Let's remember that. This is the only guy that we know that beat him in the same year. Yeah, I know Eli Manning took 2 Super Bowls from Brady, but he couldn't beat his brother. This
Yeah,
guy
that's
beat
an
his
insane
brother.
fact.
It would have been
You,
nice to see Mark Sanchez play with a decent team. I mean,
you
hey,
think if there was a XFL back then during his time, they would have scooped him up, gave him a second chance, or it would have been like, that's it for him, no more.
no, as our fans said earlier on the message board here, he was laughed out of the league after the butt fumble. He just wasn't given a fair shot because that butt fumble just really destroyed him. I mean, think about it. You want to sign a guy that ran to his own player's ass, and it's on a not so top 10 for 80 consecutive weeks that they got so tired of it being number one that they had to actually retire it from the list.
I didn't know that. Damn. Yeah,
Yeah, that thing. Okay,
they
if you
affected
watch
him on
sports,
and off the field.
well, here back then, if you watch Sports Center, they had the top 10 and they had the not so top 10. Guess what ended up number one in that not so top 10 for so many weeks in a row that they got so tired of it that they had to retire it.
Yeah, the not top 10 on
Yeah.
Fridays, I believe, or Fridays or Saturdays.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. How do you think that was for him psychologically, knowing that was number one, and I'm pretty sure on the street they were like, "Hey, aren't you the guy who you ran into some player's ass?"
Yeah, that's a
You know,
tough.
actually, the funny thing about the Jets are known for the butt fumble. I mean, look at Geno Smith. He did the butt fumble 2.0 2 years later against the Tennessee Titans. I don't know what the hell he was doing, but man, that was
Who? James Winston?
Geno Smith.
Oh, Geno Smith. Okay.
I mean,
Have
it's
you been watching the preseason so far or no?
well, I saw the Chiefs game yesterday. I saw, I guess, Patrick Mahomes' little throw to Travis Kelce, aka Taylor Swift's husband.
I'm not sure if you've seen the draft pick we got, Jordan Whittington, a rookie or wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So he's right now leading the NFL in preseason. Even though it's the preseason, he has 17 targets, 12 receptions, and over 300 yards. He's been doing pretty solid for a rookie, and I think a lot of people are saying that the Rams found another great draft pick gem. So we'll see. Yes, sir. Hop in, call in.
Yeah, hold
You
on.
good?
Let me get him in right now, partner. So this side. Let's see if he's
Hey,
in.
what's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going, man? Go
Good,
ahead.
brother.
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. You know what? I love that y'all are talking about like Mark Sanchez and stuff. The butt fumble, but people forget. Mark Sanchez was actually putting up numbers that they never expected him to actually put up, and he was actually putting up better numbers than some of the predicted rookie quarterbacks that were supposed to be actually really good. He actually put up better numbers than him, and like I said in the chats, he still, with his complete record that he has, he still has more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys,
Yes.
and actually in the last 20 plus years. And then he still has more playoff wins than the Cleveland Browns. There's multiple teams he has more playoff wins under his belt than those teams. And, people talk so much crap about him, but you're right. He's one quarterback out of I don't know how many, and God knows how many years he's actually beaten Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in the same season. I don't think any quarterback, much less a rookie quarterback, has ever done that before. Beat two elite quarterbacks in the same season like that. And, and it gets me mad that people talk bad about Mark Sanchez. And I was like, nah, that's y'all really need to look at his numbers. He really wasn't that bad. He had one game that everybody dogs him on. But if you really look at that replay, his player was actually pushed into him as he was running forward. So it wasn't him really running into his player, so much him running into his player as his player was getting pushed into him. And I don't know, honestly, looking at that, do y'all really think that was a fumble, or do you think he was down by contact by the time that ball came out?
To tell you the truth, when I look at that video, it looked like he was he was down. But I believe it was the hit that kind of like made the ball move around. But I do agree with you on everything that you had just said. Everything you said, 100% legit. Because yes, he did beat Peyton Manning, Tom Brady that same year. He did put up stellar numbers than the other rookie quarterbacks in that class. Also, he had great players in that team. Yeah. He had Holmes, he had LaDainian Tomlinson, he had Plexico Burress one year. Oh, yeah. But I just think that what the Jets did was they should have kept him where he was at because it looks like Rex Ryan wanted to elevate him in that third year to be more of a passer because he felt that the passing game was supposed to be worked on because those 2 years they were known for ground and pound. Right. And he was just more of a stabilize the time of possessions because he did if you go back to that season he had like 3 game-winning drives. He basically put the team on his shoulders.
What year was it? His rookie year?
His second year. His second year was 2010. That was the year he had comeback wins. You go back to the tapes, against the Detroit Lions, he threw that pass to Santonio Holmes that set up the game-winning field goal. Actually, no, before that, against the Texans, he threw a pass to Santonio Holmes that got the winning touchdown. Then in Detroit, he set up that pass for the winning field goal. And then in Cleveland, he had that pass to Santonio Holmes again for that winning touchdown. So Holmes was his favorite receiver. And then also the playoff game, the touchdown pass that was like the Super Bowl one. So I agree with you. If he would have had another chance, he would have played with a stellar lineup.
Right. And I tell people, I don't like how the owner of the Jets is running that team ever since he let go of Mark Sanchez, or actually when he got Mark Sanchez on the team, I did not like the way he was running that team simply because the way he was running it was more of a you better do what I paid you to do, else you're out. Nobody realistically, no player can come out and swing a home run their first season. There's going to be some bumps and bruises, some cuts. There's going to be some fumbles here and there that first season, but you got to give that player time to develop and get used to working with these guys. What the NFL did to Mark Sanchez was just completely wrong. No other team would give him a chance. They acted like he did something terrible or did something like what Colin Kaepernick did, and they just pretty much all the teams pretty much just like didn't even want to give him a fair shake. I'm pretty sure looking at his stats and looking at how he played and how he was aggressive with the scramble, and I really love that in a quarterback. It's very rare to see that now, a quarterback that's not afraid to scramble and run and take off. There's only maybe like a handful of quarterbacks that do that now. But the way he did his elusiveness, because he was pretty elusive. He got out of tackles and got out of the way of what could have been or should have been loss of yards, and he made miraculous plays. And I think if they would have gave him a chance, if he would have gone to a different team, I think if he would have been put on like the Buffalo Bills, or if he would have been put on, let's just say, I dare say put on Washington, because Washington had a pretty good team. They just had a horrible quarterback. They would have put him on Washington, or the Bills, or even the Raiders. I think he would have actually pushed that team to where they needed to be. They might not have gotten to the Super Bowl, but at least got him to maybe possibly a conference championship game. They would have kept building with him, but no, this whole butt fumble thing, just ruined his career and kind of made him doubt himself. And I think that's why I feel that's why he retired out of the NFL. He was still pretty much young. Like, he could have played some more, but he just, was laughed out of the NFL wrongfully. I mean, they acted like other players didn't do anything worse. I mean, like, look at what's his name? I can't remember the guy's name. The guy ran the football the wrong way and got a safety or a touchback instead of a touchdown. It's, he stayed in the league. Yeah, everybody laughed at him, but they didn't brutally laugh at him like they did with Mark Sanchez. And I don't get why the NFL decided, maybe the fan base, the fans decided to dog on him that bad. I mean, yeah, it was silly. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was pretty silly, that happened, but to be that cruel and not give him another chance in the NFL was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I mean, and like I said, like you said, he was like basically left out of the league, especially because of SportsCenter, because that not so top 10 was like number one for 80 weeks in a row that they finally just decided to retire it, and that's what he's basically known at. Unfortunately, like you said, they don't know him for the success he had with the Jets because, and also to kind of clarify something, he did play for Washington, so he was signed in 2018. That was the year that Alex Smith had that gruesome leg injury against the Texans. They actually brought him in, but it looks like he wasn't able to develop more into that system, and the Redskins just basically fell flat after that. But I would say that was probably maybe the one team that was decent because at the time of that injury, the Redskins had a winning record. Unfortunately, it was sad what happened to Alex Smith, but they brought in Sanchez midpoint, and he just didn't have enough time to, get adjusted. You just have to throw him in there because, like, hey, you're a pro, like you're a veteran, you know this. And then
I
also,
was I was actually referring to like the following year or that year that he decided to call it quits and stuff because Washington had a really good team. They just had a crappy quarterback. They had a pretty good offensive line. I mean, I'm not going to say it was the best offensive line or the greatest offensive line, but it was still a pretty good offensive line. They actually had some pretty good young wide receivers. That quarterback, I can't remember his name, but they needed a better quarterback. That quarterback is what screwed them that season. I mean, they could have gone pretty far. I mean, I don't know if they would have gone into the Super Bowl, but at least they would have gotten further than what they went.
yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's a great point. And like you
Yeah, it
said,
is agreeable. And then I want to go back to his point about Woody Johnson. I mean, Woody Johnson's owned the Jets since 2000. They haven't really done nothing, just maybe win 2 division titles. And then think about it. The last person to lead the Jets to the playoffs was Mark Sanchez. They haven't made the playoffs since. And right now they have the longest playoff drought. Cleveland made the playoffs with an ex Jets quarterback too. I was surprised that the Jets let him go.
so this year will be their first year back in the playoffs or what?
If the Jets make the playoffs, this will be the first year since that 2010 season. Mark Sanchez was the last quarterback to lead the Jets to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't made it since.
And I'm surprised they have so much faith in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, like realistically, every quarterback that I know throughout the years who has suffered an Achilles tear, they've never really fully recovered. They never played the same ever again.
No, and the Jets know what it's like to have that. I mean, you go back to the year '99, Vinny Testaverde, he hurt his Achilles, and that was the year coming off that AFC title game. And the sad part was they were favored to go to the Super Bowl that year because they had a stellar team, and Bill Parcells was the coach. So, the Jets have felt it that before with Testaverde, and then what happened to Aaron Rodgers, like a couple plays in. It's
4 plays in to be exact.
Yeah, you could say the Jets is one of those snake bitten teams. Everyone talked about the Cleveland Browns being snake bit. I think the Jets are one of those teams too.
I tell you, there's 2 teams in the NFL. I know y'all gonna laugh with this, and you probably might agree, but there's 2 teams in the NFL that I can say, and I say this jokingly, but somewhat serious too. 2 teams in the NFL that I feel that are cursed. The Cleveland Browns and the Jets, because I don't know what it is about those 2 teams, but every time they have like a stellar lineup, there is something like either midway through the season, regular season, or right at the end of the regular season that just cripples that team and they fall apart. I was like, I just don't get it. Do they have a great team from the beginning and middle, but or like great team in the beginning, but something happens in the middle, or like it happened, like I said, it happens right at the end of the regular season. They just get crippled and get kicked out of the playoffs, or like they they just fall apart. I don't know what it is about those two teams. It's just they've had a lot of ups and downs. I mean, it's the same thing with the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys, uh, we can't lie. You know, they've had great teams, great lineups, but something happens that screws them over. And I personally think, and I tell people, I go, look at the evidence. Dan Quinn sold the Dallas Cowboys out that last game when they played against the Green Bay Packers because 2 weeks before that game, um, he was already at Washington's Washington Commanders uh, stadium in their office. He had an interview with them. They told him he had the job already. So him knowing that he had the job already, he knew that this game was a big game for the Cowboys, and the only way he can get off his contract with the Cowboys if they lose in that playoff game. And, you know, if he did like a really crappy job, you know, if you look at that game from beginning to end, Dan Quinn never called the calls that he normally does, or like he did in the beginning and middle of that season. None of the plays were going the way that he had. It just looked so suspicious from the beginning, from the get go. And even the commentators during the game were complaining or saying like, you know, there's some, you know, about his play calling. Like they were commenting about like what's going on with Dan Quinn, Dan Quinn's calling and stuff. You know, they joked around about it, but the fact that the commentators made a comment about it, and even like Stephen A. Smith, you know, I gotta admit it, as much as I can't stand that dude because he talks so much crap. Uh, you know, he brought up a point. You know, he too said that, you know, it was very odd to see the Cowboys defense run certain options that they normally didn't run, or they weren't known to run those options. And it just, that whole game was just thrown off. And if Dan Quinn didn't do what he did in that game, if he would have coached, done his coaching job, I strongly believe that the Cowboys could have beat the Packers. I think they could have gone out and possibly even gone to the Super Bowl. They might not have beat the Chiefs, or you know, they might not, you know, they might not have got the glory, but at least they would have broke their Super Bowl drought, and they would have been in the Super Bowl. But nope, Dan Quinn sold them out. It was very clear, obvious, like I said from the get go, with the play calling and the just the defensive lineup. I mean, I don't know if y'all agree with me on that, but I really feel that way. Just dissecting the videos or that whole season, and you know, it's just, to me, it just seemed very off.
Yeah, it's like sounding like he wanted out of Dallas, or you know, he was looking to his next position. But I mean, let's talk about him real quick. Like, what were your when you saw, if you saw the NFC title game against the 49ers, what were your views on his play calling? Because he was actually questioned about his aggressive play callings, especially in the red zone when he had the big lead in that game. Because many people say that, you know, his aggressive play callings, his calls, would cost them the title game because, you know, they didn't play conservative and they let the 49ers back in it right away. Like, what's your take on that?
I kind of think he didn't play. I thought the opposite. I didn't think he played. Did more aggressive calls, or he could have done more aggressive calls. I think his calls were soft. They weren't. What I mean by soft, I think they were just too conservative. They just didn't seem like the appropriate play call, especially like when they were in the red zone, trying to defend the red zone. Why would you run? What was that play called? I'm trying to remember the specific play. Why would you not try to blitz when you're that close? Instead of doing a blitz, they did I think it was a pass rush. Uh, no, not a pass rush. It was a out. what is the Cowboys call that play? Where they have more defenders where they draw them back and they leave pretty much they leave the middle uncovered and middle range uncovered because they're so far back. So that instead of playing the short game, they played the long game, which allowed them to score on them. And it was just, to me, it wasn't aggressive enough. I mean, you should have done some kind of blitz formation or some kind of short in defensive play because everybody knew that they were going to go. They weren't going to play the long ball because that's not how San Francisco. That's not how they were in the red zone, at least in the red zone area. But further back, yes, they did play the long ball. But when it came to the red zone, they played more middle and short game. And it just, to me, it just seemed off with Dan Quinn, like he wasn't really trying on that game. It just, I don't know. To me, I guess you could say it was his way of like easing out, getting one foot out the door. His second foot was that Green Bay game.
I mean, it's tough to witness like what plays could have been called. But I said this a few weeks ago. I mean, even in an NFC Championship game, when you're up that big, you don't take your foot off the pedal. You just got to keep scoring points. And I mean, unfortunately, the play calls that he had made didn't persuade the points, and basically, defensive calls too. And there were some plays that were questionable too. But he had said this in this press conference that you get one shot at it. It is hard to get back to those playoff games. Every year you try to make the playoffs, it just takes its toll on you. And we've seen teams that make the playoffs for like 10 years in a row, and then they start struggling in season forms. So it's a very, I guess this is how they play the game. And, I'm very anxious to see what Detroit's going to do this year because, all the eyes are going to be on them. They look like they're a team that can compete up there with the 49ers and the other NFC teams, and they can beat the AFC teams. I mean, remember they beat Kansas City last year in their opener, so I mean that's one team I probably wouldn't want to take my eyes off is the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Detroit Lions were coming in hot, but they have a couple injuries in this preseason that might keep them. DeAndre Swift is injured right now, and one of their CBs is injured as well. So the running game could get affected.
I agree with you. Detroit Lions is the one team that no team should sleep on or take it easy on. Their problem, I can tell you what it is. Their coach was doing stupid calls. Instead of going for field goals, he was going for either first downs or end zone. And it cost them a lot of games, especially against the Dallas Cowboys that last game. If he would have just gone for the field goals or the extra points, they would have won. Clearly would have won. And a lot of my friends ask me, tell me, the Cowboys should have lost that game. It's like, well, they should have, but they didn't because they never stopped fighting for it. They kept putting the pressure. And the fact that, Detroit, let's face it, Detroit, they took their foot off the pedal. They eased out because they thought they were going to get the easy 2 points, and clearly they didn't. And then the thing with saying that, oh yes, the defensive player did check in as an eligible receiver. I keep looking at that video. The more I look at it, the more I question that because I don't really see any motivation from the referee to stop and look at the player and to talk to him. To me, it looked like a cheap, and I say it like this because there has been controversial plays in the past where players walk up to the referee and then walk back, but they don't say nothing to the referee, and later on during the game or during that play, same thing, they get called for eligible receiver. He's not an eligible receiver, but when they review the play, like, oh yeah, look, he did go up to the referee. Let's say, and they'll turn it over, reverse a call and say and give them the points, the touchdown or the extra point, whatever it is. But not this time, because apparently the ref didn't acknowledge at all that Detroit Lion player. And I tell people, if someone was talking to him, don't you think that ref would have stopped and turned and looked at him? I go, he probably didn't hear him. Either A, he didn't hear him, or B, he never said anything to the ref. That's why the ref never acknowledged him. So, yes, the ref was on his right to say he was a non-eligible player because he didn't make a knowledge to him. You just can't say, just because he walked up to the ref doesn't mean he said anything. Could have been the other player that was talking to the ref, because clearly the other player that walked up alongside him actually made contact or talked to the ref, and the ref acknowledged that, and that was the only thing that the ref acknowledged. But the Lions, my point goes to saying what I was getting at was Lions is still very much a dangerous team. Detroit they have the willpower. They have the weapons, offensive and defensively. Do I think they're going to make the same mistakes this year like they did last year? No, I think they're really, really going to give it all this year. I think between the Cowboys, the Lions, and who's the other team on the NFC?
49ers?
Yeah, 49ers. There you go. 49ers. I think we're going to see some explosive playing from those three teams. And I think it'll come down to into one of those three teams for sure.
And one more question. Who do you see the Chiefs going 3 straight this year, or what team you think can dethrone their dynasty possessions?
I don't see them doing a three-peat, as they call it. I don't think they're going to get that third win, just simply because, we've seen this time and time again, and history has a way of repeating itself. These players get too big of a head, the coaches get too big of a head since they won 2 in a row, and they think all the teams are afraid of them. They think they're just going to just walk in and beat these teams, and they're going to underestimate them. And I think they will get beat out. I say, as far as making it to the Super Bowl this year, I don't know. I can't really say they'll make it. I think they'll get bumped out. But I think the team, if they do make it to the Super Bowl, I have to give it between the 49ers. I think the 49ers or the Cowboys. Just looking at their lineups. I mean, Detroit, I don't really see Detroit beating the Cowboys again, or beating the Cowboys, or coming close. I don't see. I just can't see any other team. The Eagles might give them problems. I'll say that it might give them problems, but I think the Cowboys will do it again like they did last season, where they'll Eagles will underestimate the Cowboys and screw up like they usually do at the end or in overtime. That's always fun to see.
I mean, if you look at these last 2 Super Bowls, the Chiefs had to really fight hard for them. It's not like the first Super Bowl they won with Mahomes, where they beat the Niners by 10. Yeah, they came back. They were down 10 and they beat the Niners, but I mean that was like a walk in the park after they took the lead. But these last 2, they came towards the end of the game. Last 2 years ago, it was the field goal against the Eagles which I think was a questionable penalty call, which I don't think it was a penalty at all. And then
remind me, what was it? What was the penalty?
I believe they called a holding or a pass interference on Philly when Kansas City was driving. That basically gave them a first down. They had to do was just kind of run the clock and keep the winning field goal.
Oh yeah. No, that I have to agree. I think it was very questionable. I don't think it was a penalty. And I tell people, if there's videos on YouTube you can look at if you don't believe me. So these videos explain detail how the NFL is scripted.
Yeah.
Because how they push teams to sell more tickets, to sell more merchandise, to sell seats. It's just it's very obvious that they do that now, and a lot of people pretend that they try to, they bat an eye at it or turn the cheek the other way, not to look at it, because we all want to believe in sports. That sports is the
Yeah,
most untainted thing, but I mean, it's become more of a business than sports now.
it started to become
Uh,
more like the WWE.
right, right. I mean, let's face it. There's been quite a few calls in the past during playoffs that the team who actually won that game had no business winning that game or getting calls in their favor at all. Um, what was that one team? Was it Green
Oh
Bay?
yeah, I think I know where this is going. I'm gonna say it because I'm a Rams fan. It was the 2018 NFC title game that pass interference call that should have been called but was never called.
On the Rams?
I remember that one. That was one of them.
Yeah.
That was where they were trying to get that field goal, but they didn't count it, and that was one game I know that was a questionable call that they should have called it. And I go back to the year where the referees went on strike, 2012, that Green Bay
Mhm.
Seattle Monday night where
Oh,
they
that
called
was a
it.
terrible call.
Yeah, they one said
It should have
touchback, the
it
other
should
one
have been
said
called an
touchdown.
interception.
Yeah, I remember one said touchback, the other one said touchdown, and I think the head lineman went with the guy that said touchdown. And if you also look at the replay, I mean, there was a lot of penalties. There was a lot of pushing, shoving. Even Golden
Mhm.
Tate was caught red-handed pushing off, and they didn't even call it. When he was asked about it, he was like, he said, quote, "I don't know what you're talking about." So he was trying to deny it, which I think was pretty stupid. I
Yeah.
mean, like, everybody saw it on TV.
Mm. Yeah. And I tell people, when it comes to football, or like when it comes to crucial points in the game, the the team, or the team that has the quarterback who is his true leader, who will push his team to the finish line, is usually the team that's going to win, because most of the time, if you really study, like look at these team quarterbacks, the way that the the quarterback handles his team. I have seen teams that were losing by like almost 30 points. And let's take Minnesota, for instance. When Minnesota made that miracle comeback out of nowhere. And they were
Still can't
down
believe that
almost,
one.
right? I mean, they were down almost 30 points, and they made a miracle comeback. And why? If you look at that sideline, that quarterback, the coaching staff, they were all motivating and pushing and telling them, we're not out of this yet. We still got plenty of time. And they did. If you did the math, you look at it, they did exactly what they needed to do. They scored points when they needed to score. Their defense has stepped up. You know, they showed, and it's a beautiful game. It's the most beautiful game as an example, the most beautiful example you can give, that it's never over until that fourth quarter reads 0-0-0-0 on that clock, because anything could happen. All it takes is the right motivation, the right leader, and the right play calling to push that team over the top to make that miracle come back and win. And like I said, Minnesota's done it. I mean, Minnesota has done it so many times in the past. I mean, that last one that they did was great compared to the one that they barely won again when they made that miracle catch
I talk about
against the Saints.
the miracle game in 2017.
Yeah,
That was the game Joe Buck called.
yeah.
When you talk about comebacks, there's one that comes in mind, and like I'm old school because I've seen football for a long time. I go back to the year 2000, the famous Monday Night Miracle. I mean, I remember that one. When the Jets beat the Dolphins down
Oh
30
yeah.
in the fourth, and Testaverde took them back. And then I remember 2003, the Monday night game with the Bucks and Colts. I believe it was a 35-13 with 5 minutes left, and the Colts just made that comeback. And then they had the famous leaping call, which a
Hmm.
lot of us didn't know at the time what the hell that meant.
Yeah. Oh, was that the leaping for the field goal where he leaped over the player's
Yeah,
back?
that was
Yeah.
where I think that was from Tampa Bay. That they leaped over to try to block it, and then I think the kicker missed it, and then they said unsportsmanlike conduct, and then leaping. And I remember Al Michaels going leaping, like leaping, which is one of those rules that are there, but you don't see it called often. So I can see why they had like that weird reaction. But I mean, that's one game I remember that, and that was Tony Dungy's homecoming too, because he was the coach of the Colts at the time, and the Bucks were the champs. So that was like I think about those games. Those are like the big comeback games.
Definitely.
But I do want to say though, we do really appreciate you having us on the program. We'd like to bring you back again if you're up for it.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. I
Okay.
love talking about this stuff, man.
Yeah, go ahead and follow us here on Podbean. Anytime that
I'll
we go
follow both
live,
of you.
you'll be notified. Anytime you want, you can come in. Feel free to join us.
Y'all talk about the NBA as well, and like hockey,
Yeah.
NHL.
We'll talk about that anytime. Any subject you want to bring into, you're more welcome to
Nice.
bring to the
All right.
table.
All right, I'm down.
Yeah, we
When do
appreciate.
when do y'all normally come on?
We're normally once a week, but with the summer almost nearing, we're gonna try to do maybe every day we can.
Oh, cool. Right on.
But yeah, if you follow us on here, you'll know when we go live.
Cool. We'll do.
All right.
I'm following both of y'all already.
Cool. We thank you for joining us. You have a good
Yep.
evening, and we'll see you
Thank
again.
you,
Thank you.
Enigma.
Y'all too. Y'all have a good one. Y'all be safe.
Have a
You
good
too.
night.
You have a good night.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Well, that was very interesting. And in 3 seasons we never had a caller call in, but that's actually fun.
Yeah, he's cool. He knows his
He's cool.
stuff for
Yeah.
sure.
And anybody that wants to join us, feel free to call in anytime.
I
So
forgot
that's
how
all.
to announce this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's gonna do it for us tonight. A very nice way to kick off season 3, partner, and welcome back. And we look forward to this season with a lot of sports coming up.
Yeah, it should be a great season, man. Our first season, it was our start. We ran through it. This season should be a great one.
Yes, and then we're also going to be talking about Long Beach City College athletics as the football season comes up. So again, we want to thank you, and as we always say, partner, another podcast.
Another day, another podcast.
Yeah, we're going to be back on this week again. We'll talk more about the NFL as we get ready for the season. And also we'll talk about, more of the NBA coming up and the NHL and other events as well. But, for my boy Jesus here, I'm Ed. Thank you for joining us on Sports Talk. We will see you guys next time.